And this is an incredibly stereotypical image of what Australia is like. It's very fun, because that is about 1,000,000 miles away from that, which is about 1,000,000 miles away from... Yet it's very inconsistent, just to say the least, but hey, right? This is the stereotypes of either countries, and if you are familiar with stereotypes, you'll probably be familiar with the idea, right, that Americans drive this, and that Australians drive that. So, is a ute a truck? No. Are utes and trucks the same thing? No. Are utes the same as trucks? Again, no. Is it just that Australians call trucks utes and Americans call utes trucks? No. I am going to convince you by the end of this video that utes and trucks are completely different and have no connection whatsoever. So, first of all, let's start with the first ever ute. This what was considered the first ever ute. It came out in like 1934, I believe, and we can see this is what it looked like, right? This is, something similar that we had in America. This is a 1934 Ford truck, right? This is what, if you went into America and you went to buy a truck, this is what you got. This is a truck, right? During this time period. This is an Australian ute during this time period. So we can see it progress. So here's where I'm gonna get into the nitty gritty. This is a truck. This is called the Toyota pickup truck, and that is a truck. This is a ute. So what exactly is the difference between our American truck and their Australian ute? This one, personally, is a Plymouth. Well, first of all, the Plymouth is a car. That's right, this is a car frame and car chassis and car body with the back cut off. That's what utes are. This American pickup truck is its own thing. This was engineered just to be a pickup truck, and sometimes they're converted to SUVs, but this was just engineered as a pickup truck. That is essentially the only difference. Utes are regular everyday cars converted into what we would call a truck. This is a 2014 Holden Commodore. You may know this as a GM car, a GM vehicle, right? And I think we can all agree here that this is a sedan. This is a family car, a family sedan, if not being a little bit sporty, right? This is a Holden VF Commodore SS Ute, which is different from the other car, but they're also the same in many respects, right? Do you understand what I'm getting to here, right? Utes are cars turned into, let's just say, what should I describe them as a general? Beds. No, the trucks, right? This is a car being turned into a truck, right? A US truck is built on its own and then later converted to an SUV usually. I'm going to try and give you an example of something that hits real close. The 2004 Toyota Prius. Imagine, right, because this is the difference between a ute. Could you imagine this car being turned into a truck? I mean this truck. Could you imagine this truck somehow being turned into this car? No, because this car is low to the ground. It has low to the ground body panels, right? And it's extremely fuel efficient. All not characteristics of trucks. It would be very hard to make this a truck. But to make it a ute, just chop off the back. This is a Toyota Prius ute. That is the greatest example I can offer you. There are differences. This is a 2000 Ford F-150. This is a truck, right? We can see it's high off the ground, it has a big bed, and it's a very rugged vehicle. This is a 2000 AU Falcon Ute. And you can clearly see these are both made by the same manufacturer, and they're both made at the same time. And yet you can tell these are different, right? So let's just go over the differences, because these are two brands at the exact same time. So let's just note the differences. First of all, the Ford F-150 is higher than the Falcon, right? We can definitely agree upon that. The Falcon also has normal everyday car body panels, everyday car bumper, and, rear bumper. This has higher SUV-like features, right? It also has big headlights and a big grille. This one has smaller, more restrained headlights and a smaller, more restrained grille. This looks more like a car, right? We can also see that these cars both have beds that are similar sizes, but these cars are just designed differently. The Ford F-150 guzzles more gas. Meanwhile, the Ford Falcon Ute guzzles a lot less gas than the Ford does, just because it's more aerodynamic and it's more efficient. This would be okay, I guess, at off-roading. Meanwhile, this would definitely be much better than that, right? There are pros and cons to having a Ute versus a truck. The biggest difference I can offer to you. This is a truck interior. This is a 2014 Ford F-150 truck interior. This is a 2014 Holden VF Commodore Ute interior. This is a car interior, right? These are cars. These are not at all similar. We can see the rugged features, right? The thick, durable, reliable plastic, right? The gigantic cup holders, the gigantic everything. It's big. And then you can see the smoother, more refined features of a car interior. The Utes are cars turned into trucks. Trucks are just trucks, right? Trucks are their own independent thing. Here's another one. This is probably the most popular car of all time. The 1999 Toyota Camry. You've probably seen these, right? This is a Camry Ute. It would be so easy to make this thing into a Ute and yet harder to make it into a truck. These cars are in fact different, 100%, and I'm sure you can agree with me there, right? The Ford F-150, right? The only other counterpart you can have to this vehicle is the Ford Expedition, right? But the 2014 Ford Falcon Ute, the only thing that can have is a sedan, right? These are even both golden and both the same trim level, right? So it's clear to see, right? SUVs can be turned into trucks and trucks can be turned into SUVs, but you can't turn a Ute into a truck or an SUV. And a sedan can't be turned into a truck or an SUV, just a Ute, right? You see the clear differences here, right? These are the families. SUV and truck are very close together, and Ute and sedan are also very close together. That's the biggest thing, I'm sure you understand the point that I'm making here. So why are these cars different? Why do Australians have Utes and why do we have trucks? Because that seems very weird. And you may think that it's just because, we're two separated continents and one of us got one idea and the other one got another idea and that just kind of stuck. Not really. I'll always say this, cars adapt to the terrain that they're on. In the U.S., trust me, I grew up in Oregon, we have very hilly, very, off-roady plains and terrain, right? We have very rocky places, especially when you compare it to officially the flattest continent, which is Australia. Another thing that you have to remember, the U.S. population is spread, well, that's the Australian population. U.S. population? No, Pontiac Ute, U.S. population. I don't have the U.S. population. Oh yeah, U.S. population. We are very far spread, right? The entire country, that's us, right? We live in a lot of the country, right there. You can see in Florida, and then not so much in Oregon, where I live, right? Both of those places, right? So inconvenient that they're directly across from each other. Anyway, but you can tell the difference between the U.S. and the Australian population. And we can see the hotspots here. Adelaide, Brisbane, Sydney, Canberra, Hobart, Perth, Darwin. We can see there's a big collection down here, a little bit of collection up there, a lot of collection down here, and a little bit over there. And transferring goods from civilization to civilization is key. So let's just talk about, what you would want out of a, Australian car to cross the outback. Because remember, if your population is so spread out like this, it's going to be very hard to cross from one side to the other, especially when the terrain looks like this. So, let's say you're taking your Ford F-150 out there. First of all, it guzzles gas, right? It's not very good on gas. That's going to, you're going to need to keep gas tanks in the car, but remember, you're not going to be able to go that long of a distance. It's just not that efficient. Also, remember, it's not aerodynamic. Aerodynamics may not matter in some situations, but when you're driving for miles and miles and miles on end and you have 4 gas canisters, yes, aerodynamics definitely does matter. It also is great for off-roading, but the road is flat. It's also very uncomfortable with its quote-unquote sport-tuned suspension, right? You're going to feel the bumps. That's going to be very uncomfortable to drive in. Similarly, if you try to take a Ute on U.S. terrain, you're going to find it's really bumpy, and the Ute's like a car, right? The sedan. Remember, if you're traveling things and taking things from one point to another, they're usually not going to be right next to each other. Otherwise, you could just walk it there, right? So you're going to be traveling long distances against your respective countries. And if you live in this part of the U.S., more towards the north, right, obviously a Ute's not going to perform that well, right? We have mud, we have aggressive rains, we have aggressive winters that Australia just doesn't have, right? So Ford F-150 may be great in the snow, but that doesn't matter in Australia. There is no snow in Australia, unless you live in Adelaide or one of those other countries, right? And in the U.S., where we have really aggressive winters, A rear-wheel drive Ute's not really going to do that as well. Also, the comfy suspension might be nice on nice and flat, straight, clear roads, but, like I said, snow, hilly terrain, it's just not going to be that good, right? So that's why these cars are so different. That's why Utes have adapted the way that they are. They're ultra aerodynamic, ultra fuel efficient, and they're just designed to be better for the, driving in the outback. And a lot of Australia is like that too. That's why Utes evolved the way that they did, and trucks, modern day trucks have evolved the way that they did, right? That's essentially why, trucks are great for off-roading, and why Utes are great for just being your everyday normal car. So, what is, by the way, yes, GM has also made Utes, they've made Holden, we've also seen a Pontiac. This is just another example of a sedan being turned into a Ute, right? A classic example that hits home. So, what's a Ute that's been in the U.S.? It's very hard to find good examples of a Ute that's been in the U.S., right? We have the weird Chevy bubbly one, but people have already talked about that. What's the most relevant and interesting car that is a Ute and not a truck? This is a 2004 Subaru Legacy. You know exactly what car I'm talking about, and I love that you know that. This is the Subaru Baja. This is a Ute. It is slightly lifted for off-roading, but you can definitely tell this is going to be better on flat roads than it will be off-roading. I'm not dissing this car. I'm not saying that if you own a Baja, you can't go off-roading. I'm not saying that at all, but you have to admit this is more Ute-like than it is truck-like. I would 100% describe the Baja as a Ute, right, in the U.S. Also, I want to give you another example, right? I want to give as many examples as possible. What's another example of cars adapting to the terrain that they're in? Let's say we do a very small country, right? A very, very compact country. We take the U.S. population and we ram it into Hawaii or something small like that, right? It's going to be very tall. Buildings are going to be very vertical. Streets are going to be very narrow. There's also going to be lots of pollution, and it's usually going to be very flat, right? So you'd want the smallest, most efficient car possible, right? But efficiency, it matters, but it doesn't really matter. The only reason why efficiency matters is because you want to pay less for gas, right? In the Australian outback, you need efficiency to cross it, right? Let's say if you had 4 gas canisters, that'd be dicey, right? Even going from somewhere, pretty close together, right? But if you're just driving in downtown, that's fine, right? You're not going to need to use that, right? Each car is adapted for its own specific area. So these very small, densely populated areas have their own type of truck that is different from Utes and different from trucks. And that is K-trucks. We've seen these before, right? These have incredibly small engines because why? They're incredibly efficient. Bigger engines, they gain efficiency with speed. You don't speed that much in these smaller countries, right? You may even be just driving down the road, right? So these cars, they're comfortable, but they're ultra efficient, right? They're very small and compact. That's why you don't see a 10-foot hood sticking out of this thing, right? So cars always adapt to the area that they're in. And this is the best example I can give to you of how cars adapt to their situation and why Utes are different from trucks. You wouldn't describe a K-truck as a truck. Is it technically a truck? Yes. Are Utes technically trucks? Yes. But there is very blatant, obvious differences between the two. So with that, thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you guys real soon.